The wheel of time turns, and ages come and pass, leaving memories that become legend. Legend fades to myth, and even myth is long forgotten when the age that gave it birth comes again. In one age, called the Third Age by some, an age yet to come, an age long past, a wind rose in the mountains of mist. The wind was not the beginning. There are neither beginnings nor endings to the turning of the Wheel of Time, but it was a beginning. Alright, fantasy fans, this is Dan here with Treebeard Book Reviews, and today I'm really excited to bring you my review of The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan, Book 1 of The Wheel of Time. Let's get into it. Okay guys, so welcome back. I'm really excited to talk about this one. This is a review I've been really looking forward and waiting to do for a long time. As you all know, The Wheel of Time is probably my favorite fantasy or epic fantasy series. It's also probably the book I own the most copies of. I have, you can see, the 30th anniversary edition here. I have my paperback copy, Eye of the World. This is the one I read. And then I also have these two here. So I have From the Two Rivers and To the Blight. And I do have another copy of The Wheel of Time coming. It's a hardcover. It's the blue cover. That's eventually going to be showing up. It's probably going to be here by the time this video comes out. But yeah, the big thing I really want to say is with Eye of the World, like, this is such a good book, and it got me started in The Wheel of Time, and it started me on this journey. So I'm really happy for you guys to take this journey with me, because I love Wheel of Time. This is my first time through the series now, my first reread of the series, and I'm really looking at it from, looking at, what am I gaining, reading it again, and honestly, I can say there's so much. So before we get into the review, I just want to say, thank you guys so much, for continuing to support me. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more Wheel of Time content. If you want to see my full reread of the series, please stay tuned for that. So I'm going to be doing a plot summary of this book. It's the first book. I really want to give you guys a good idea of what's going on in the book. There's going to be no spoilers in that. If there is going to be any spoilers, I will put a spoiler tag in the description, and you'll see when it starts and when the spoilers end. So please be cognizant of that. This review, again, is going to be, it's really in anticipation of the show coming out. I cannot wait for the show November 19th. I've seen a lot of the trailers. I'm really, really pumped. So I say, like before, let's get into it. I really want to talk about this. So let's get into the plot of The Wheel of Time, The Eye of the World. Let's go. Okay guys, so this is just going to be a spoiler-free plot, just discussion, just to kind of hype you up, why you should read, set the stage for why you should read The Eye of the World and get into The Wheel of Time. So I'm going to start off, you meet your three main protagonists. You're going to meet Perrin Ibarra, Matrim Cawthon, and Randall Thor. So these guys, they're essentially they're farmers. One's a sheep farmer, one's a blacksmith apprentice. Matrim's father looks after horses. They're country folk, they're simple folk. And, they eventually start seeing this black rider that's been stalking all of them. And it gets them concerned. And then what happens is a wizard or an Aes Sedai shows up in their town and essentially says, you're going to have to come with me on this adventure, So something happens in the town where the town is attacked eventually. And it really forces these boys' hands to follow Moraine, who's the Aes Sedai, and Lan, and go on this adventure and, figure out why these dark entities, these creatures are, tracking these boys. And it's this beautiful coming of age story, this good versus evil. Magic there's this world imbued with magic. It's a really great story. So there's this, like I said, there's these three farm boys, and they're integral. They are part of the wheel. Like, the wheel is turning around them, and they're chosen by. So it's almost very reminiscent of Lord of the Rings, where Wizard shows up. Wizard takes these reluctant characters who don't want to go on an adventure, and they discover themselves, and they grow up. Maybe not fully in this story, but they begin to grow up, and they really come into their own skills and realize that they have skills themselves, and that they bring a lot to the table. So, again, I don't want to get into too much because it's the first book in the series. I don't want to spoil anything. I really want you guys to just enjoy this and get into this book. So, let's get into some of the things that are good about The Eye of the World. Okay, so there's really 4 things I want to highlight that are great about The Eye of the World. I'm going to talk about all of them. So, it's the character relationships. The plot, I really enjoy the plot, the magic in this world, and then also I'm going to talk about Lan and Moraine. No, like I said, spoiler free, but I'm going to talk about just why they're amazing. So let's get into the first point. Okay, so I really want to talk about the character relationships in the book. There is some, Robert Jordan, for the first book, he sets up some excellent character relationships. Between the 3 boys, like Rand, Perrin, and Matt, you can really see the love that they have for each other and like this friendship that they have and how it runs deep and they care for each other so much. And then there's also these other characters that are, added to the story of like Nynaeve and Egwene who come in later. But their relationship with the boys and their relationship together, it's so well done. Like you really feel that these people have known each other since childhood. And they know everything about each other, and they would do anything for these people because they love them, and they're from a small town, like everyone and everyone's business. So you really feel that in these books, like the relationship between all these characters from the 2 rivers, or the 2 Rivers 5 as they're called. It's so well done, and for me, it really engage me with the story the whole time because you care about this relationship that they have with each other. And that's one thing I'm really hoping that they do in the show, is that portrays this relationship of love and friendship that they all have. So now I want to talk about the plot. Okay, so just to briefly go over why I love the plot of this book. I said, it's a very familiar plot. It's very reminiscent of Lord of the Rings, and I think that's obviously done for Jordan just to really get published at the time. You kind of need to emulate Lord of the Rings in the early 90s. And it's good. I really enjoy it. It moves along super fast. I like that there is eventually a diversion. It doesn't feel like Lord of the Rings near the end. And then it really stops feeling like Lord of the Rings in the rest of the Wheel of Time. But it's a very, very familiar plot. Wizard comes and seeks unwilling adventurers. And it's really good. I felt, I never felt bored in this story. I really enjoyed it. And it's such a good plot that, it's great. So let's really now talk about the magic. The magic that the Aes Sedai wields, you don't really learn a lot about it. You learn that there's a male half and a female half to the magic. The male half is tainted and the female half is good. And the female half, is wielded by Moraine Sedai, as you see. She's an Aes Sedai. And the magic's really cool. They weave the elements of earth, fire, air, spirit. It's so cool, and you don't really learn too much about the magic in this book, but you can see that there's a scaffolding there that Robert Jordan's going to build on. He's just going to build this amazing magic system. Really love the magic, and really love how it kind of plays into the book, with Moraine and eventually some of the other characters that you see in the book. So really love the magic system. Okay, so then the last thing I want to talk on is Moraine and Lan, who, Moraine is the wizard, the Aes Sedai, and then Lan is her protector, her warder. And, such great characters to have in the first book. You need these hyper-competent characters like Lan and Moraine. Moraine, who's the wise wizard. Lan, who's this amazing, stoic fighter, literally stone-faced. And just their relationship together is so good. I mentioned, there's really good character relationships, and Lan and Moraine would be in that as well. Lan just knows what she's thinking, and they're just super hyper competent characters, and you trust them. You as the reader trust them. The Evansfield 5 really don't trust them, but that's just the nature of the world. They're small town folk, right? They don't trust easily. So yeah, really, really love all the things that I've mentioned in The Eye of the World. It's such a solid book. It's such an amazing first entry into the Wheel of Time. It really gets you hooked on these characters. And like I said, after book 1, I was like, okay, I need to know what happens to these characters. I cannot know. And I picked up the Wheel of Time when we first went into lockdown back in 2019. I said I have a little bit more time. I'm gonna pick up this massive series because it's always been daunting, and like now this is my first reread through, and I'm super excited, and I'm super excited to get you guys to read this too so we can discuss it. So let's get into some of the things I didn't care for in The Eye of the World. Okay, so there's not going to be a lot of bad here. I really love this book. There's not a lot of things that are negative for me. I know a lot of people do have a hard time getting into the, to the style of Robert Jordan. And that's one thing I'm going to talk about is it's a minor negative. I like it, but I can see how it's a negative, and it does kind of drag on sometimes, is he's very verbose. You know, he has to describe every single button on a shirt, or you know, just the way someone twirls their mustaches or throws their braids. So he's a very descriptive writer. I think it adds so much to the world building. I love it personally. But for some people, it can drag on, right? There is a lot of things, you know, where women put their arms under their breasts, or certain characters tug their braids, and you know, or flip their hair this way. So that can drag on for some people, and just the over descriptiveness can be a bit annoying at times. But for me, I don't mind it, but it can be a negative at certain points where you're like, get on with the story, mate. So then the next negative I want to touch on is I don't think Robert Jordan does intimate relationships. So between characters who, you know, will eventually maybe have a love interest or some of that. He just does insta-love, and it's not really explained. I'm not going to tell you who the characters are it's between, but it's just like, that came out of nowhere. So... yeah, so there's that. That I'm not a super fan of. I just don't think I just don't think he was interested in, you know, writing that type of stuff, and so he threw it in there because he kind of felt like he had to, and he doesn't really lay the foundation for this love interest. So yeah, that's one thing. And the last thing I really want to touch on is the ending. So the ending of this book, it's confusing. Let's just say, or on a first read, when I first read The Eye of the World, I had to read the ending of this like twice, maybe 3 times, like what's happening in the last few pages. I'm like, what's going on? I have no idea what's going on. This makes no bloody sense. And it's supposed to. It's really supposed to. You're not supposed to understand what's happening. And I mean, I don't know how, if like this series never got finished and it was just left at book 1, you'd be like, well, that was kind of crap. But you know, this book, and this is a negative I'm going to give it. It does benefit from a reread. Now I've read the whole Wheel of Time series. I've understand you know, how so many things work. That, you know, reading this for the first time, or the second time, sorry, I picked up so much stuff, and like you see all these foundations getting laid and these prophecies coming out, and you're just like, oh, it's so good. But on a first reread, a lot of the shit you're like, whoo, straight over the head, didn't freaking catch it. That's gone. So yeah, this book really benefits from a reread, and as a first-time reader, it can be a turn-off to, like, you know, miss this stuff. There's so many things you miss, and I think, you know, when the original, like, Wheel of Time fans who are waiting for the books to come out every few years, you know, they would read it over and over again. So this said, I read the whole series through and then came back and rereading it now, and like I said, I loved it. I super enjoyed this book. There are some negatives, don't get me wrong, but the goods highly outweigh the negatives for me. So now let's get into my rating of what I think of The Eye of the World and why you should read The Wheel of Time. I'll probably do a separate video on, you know, fully explaining why you should read The Wheel of Time. But let's get into my rating now. Okay, guys, thanks for sticking out here with me. I know this is probably a longer review. I just want to get you guys pumped and excited for the show coming out. Read this book before you have some time now. So let's talk about my rating. So I rated, The Eye of the World a 5 on Goodreads, but my overall rating is a 4.6. I love this book. It's so good. And as I said, you know, I started this book and I'm like, okay, I need to know what happens to all these characters because I'm invested. Some of them I was more invested in early than others. Others I get obviously more invested in later in the books. But this is such a great first entry. It's got everything you want, like classic fantasy entry, farm boy, chosen one, coming of age, amazing relationships, magic. It's such a, and just a rich world. Like this world, like like the way he describes this world, it's written so beautifully for me that you just fall into Randland, and like you fall into this world where, you know what a Kyrianan looks like, you know what a Shinaran looks like, and it's so well done that, this book it's going to be one of my favorite books of all time. It's probably going to be the top one of my books, top 10 books of like 2021, even though I've already read it. We'll be doing that. I'll be doing a debrief at the end of the year. But again, guys, can't stress it enough. Pick up this book. Like I said, it's not an easy read. I'll give you that. It's not an easy read, but you will thank me and you'll thank yourself for giving this a shot. It's such an enjoyable series. I wouldn't own 4 bloody copies of this book if I didn't love it. Please read The Eye of the World. I want to talk to you about it. Hit me up on the Discord. Comment down below. And we'll see you guys next time. Thank you.